For more on this, let's bring in Harris Faulkner, host of the Faulkner Focus and co-host of Outnumbered, right here on Fox News. Great to see you.
Everybody caught me. You've got me constantly working right now. I mean, I sit down with David.
She brought in the latest on the White House meeting tonight. So.
You and I together, we've done so much news together.
We have.
And you're on Outnumbered, and we love it when you are.
Thank you so much.
So we usually don't get a lot of notes on what the president's going to talk about beforehand, but White House official giving us this. And this is the one that kind of pops out. I mean, he's going to guarantee that Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. We know that. That was one of the earlier objectives. Annihilate their navy, destroy Iran's deadly ballistic missiles and production facilities, so on. But this part stands out to me, David. He's expected to reiterate the 2 to 3 week timetable for concluding the operation that he stated yesterday. And why does that? Because he never does that. He doesn't like to telegraph. And you mentioned, well, are we getting mixed messaging? Wall Street didn't think so. Right? They had some reaction early on. And so now when he does this again, we'll see what the markets do when we first wake up in the morning. But, you know, everybody's looking for that sign of when is this going to wrap up. This list will be lengthy. I mean, he's going to talk about the U.S. military's success already there. I would imagine, doesn't say it on this list, got to talk about the Strait of Hormuz. Have to talk about NATO.
The question, though, then the reason I was talking about mixed signals with you before we went to broadcast was because he's given, yesterday he came out with one statement saying we can leave before that's settled. Today he came out with a statement saying the only way we're going to settle with Iran is if they free up the Strait of Hormuz. So direct contradictions on that. I wonder if he's going to address the Strait of Hormuz tonight.
I think he will. And I don't think
what is he going to say?
I don't think that messaging is always for us. We're sometimes very self-focused as human beings. And here in America, all eyes on us because we're engaging and basically on our own outside of Israel. I mean, we're partners in this together. But what he's doing is he's telling the enemy what he's willing to do.
Yeah.
And he's telling the enemy what he's not willing to do. And then he's switching it. I don't care if they're confused.
Right.
I kind of like it. But what I do know is at the end of the day, the rest of Western Europe, they need the oil to move through the strait more than we do. I do.
And yet they're not helping.
No, oh, look at You were just talking about Starmer, right? I mean, I wouldn't give that leader at this point with all the stuff that he says and who he cozies up with, but he doesn't want to be partners in a special relationship with the United States. I wouldn't give him keys to an empty bank at this point.
Right. Well, in fact, Donald Trump mentioned them yesterday. He didn't mention Starmer in particular, but the whole group, everybody who's involved in NATO. He said, let the countries using the strait go and open it for themselves. I think Americans would agree with that.
Look, they have a big problem if we pull up stakes. They do. And if our objectives have been met, why wouldn't we? Right? We have changed the game there. I mean, we still haven't seen the person that they say stepped up into the shoes of many people who were knocked down and taken out. But the president's been talking with somebody that he feels like is a better broker.
Well, supposed to be the head of the parliament, who actually the president said he can deal with. Some others, like General Keane, said not so. He's just as much a hardliner as the others. So, so we'll have to see how that works out. But
9 p.m. Eastern, pop your corn.
And again, I think Wall Street is going to be watching, but they have been on a razor's edge. I mean, the slightest little Truth Social posting by the president sends it going way up or way down, and then it switches 100%. Yeah, it's like the media.
The media reacts like that too. So my question for you, because you're the expert in all of this, is how much does that matter? You are. How much does that matter, say, 6 to 10 weeks from now? Because as we inch our way closer, deeper into the midterm election primary season, and then beyond and closer to the actual election, that's what I'm looking at. Like gas prices, if we close this up in the next 3 weeks or so, I see those reflexively going back because we've seen them go up and down, oil, per barrel and all that sort of thing. But I don't know about the overall economy. And do you only judge it by Wall Street and what it's doing right now?
No, not at all. In fact, you did have data coming out today, 3 data points on jobs and manufacturing and other things that suggest that the economy is strong.
Wages?
Now a lot of these are looking in the rearview mirror, in February,
Right.
and that was before the war actually began. But even those that take in the full month of March shows that the incentives, the tax incentives and the regulatory or deregulatory incentives from President Trump have paid off and have created this very strong market economy. And factory growth is going great guns because you have 100% depreciation on anything you spend on it. So they're beginning to build out the factories, which means you need more workers to fill those factories, to do more things. So I think it's basically the economy is doing
pay well.
The economy is doing well. Stocks are actually doing well because of the fact that the profits are coming in. So the profits for companies, and as Larry Kudlow famously says, that's the mother's milk of the market is the profits that are coming in. They're still making profits. The consumers are still spending money. So things are looking good. But again, how long does this drag on? How long can diesel fuel cost more than $5 a gallon, which adds to the cost that we pay for everything that the trucks deliver?
Well, it's a problem politically because you don't want to go backwards and look too much like Biden's gas prices.
Absolutely.
You don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
But I was asking specifically wages and paychecks because that's going to matter too. You have a fair amount of people. We don't talk about the Coast Guard and the other people in the DHS who aren't getting paid.
Right.
Right. We need to talk about them. TSA, the president has figured out a way through executive order, but then he'd have to do it again if Congress can't get its act together. Who's holding their breath on that? And I'm calling for Republicans to come back and set the pace, play the shame game, and show us who the Democrats really are. You know, encourage them, incentivize them through shame, whatever you got to do. And if TMZ takes one more picture of people out and video out having a good time while others are suffering.
Right.
So I'm looking at the balance
TMZ
of
has been doing the yeoman's work in showing that. Both Republicans and Democrats, by the way, are getting their handheld escort up to the front of the line. But remember, the lines have come down dramatically because of the presidential action that has been taking place by the president, putting ICE in there for TSA and also getting some money out to the TSA workers. So things are working very quickly. I got to ask you, because most of your show today was taken up by the Supreme Court talking about the question of whether or not we're going to be able to continue a practice of birthright citizenship.
Right.
The problem being, of course, that the people that started that policy in the United States did not foresee all of these millions of people coming in as illegal migrants. And do they deserve a citizenship as much as the old migrants who came in legally deserve the birthright citizenship?
Well, when it began, it was about slavery. And people who had been brought to this country against their will, and those people had children. And the question was, basically, do they have a right? I mean, where else would they go?
Yeah.
Were they going to take the children and return them to Africa? Like, what were their choices back then? So can you make those people citizens along with the freed slaves, so on and so forth? We have to take a look at whether or not that ever intended to embrace an illegal immigration situation. Basically, an invasion of it. A whole lot of people having babies. Tourism for the point of that. No, of course not. It didn't game that out, right? I mean, it's more than just a short, brief look. And that's at the heart of this case. I only saw maybe one or two questions asked about that today. Clarence Thomas asked a question very early on in the Supreme Court questioning today. And I just wonder, we got all caught up in domicile and who lives where and all of that. So I dug deeper and I said, look, if we're only going to make it about that, how many countries have unrestricted birthright citizenship? Well, there were about 195 countries, right? 160 plus don't have anything like what we have.
I'm not surprised, yeah.
Right. It's lower than 15%.
We are unusual in allowing that.
We are alone almost, because even the ones that are like us aren't exactly like us. Yeah. It's not unrestricted. So, will they take a look at it and uphold the president's executive order to keep this in place and to have those children born to illegal immigrants, not, because they're coming here for tourism, they're coming here illegally, whatever the situation is, they're in the country to have a child here. Will that stand? Because if we wait for Congress to do it, well, again, do we hold our breath for Congress?
Holding your breath for Congress would turn you blue pretty quickly, because
we could go to space with no oxygen with Artemis.
Can't seem to get anything done. By the way, can I just make a plug for a book that you did a couple of years ago?
Oh my gosh!
Faith Still Moves Mountains. It's a great book, and it is Holy Week. And if you're looking for something to read during Holy Week, that book moved me, and it moves mountains still.
Matthew 17:20 is the
Is that
verse
it?
where that came from, faith moving mountains. And I believe always, always with my heart that when you lean into the Lord, he leans into you. All things are possible. Faith does still move mountains.
Thank you for ending on that. That was a good point.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Harris, great to see you.
So
I'm
much
going to
fun
be
to
on
be here.
Outnumbered coming up soon, so we'll see each other soon.
Yes. Okay.
The Faulkner Focus, of course, you can see every weekday at 11 a.m. on Fox News. That's Eastern Time. Thank you, Harris.
Thank you.